everyone, Alexandra Jowett, Jupiter Returns, here with your weekly, in-depth, day-by-day astrology forecast for the week of August the 3rd to the 9th, 2020. I hope this finds you all well. Big news today, obviously, is the Aquarius full moon that we have, as indicated here. As always, with a full moon, it's the opposition aspect that comes into play between the sun and the moon, and this is why so often it can come about through our interactions with other people or reflections back from the outer world and connections that we have, interactions with another person through that opposition angle. It's like the mirror being held up in front of us in order for us to see something, recognize something about ourselves. So what we have here is we have the sun in Leo, the sign of the self, the sign of the heart of the self, really, the creativity, the way that we best shine our light into the world, our unique light. How do we creatively express ourselves? How do we stand on the stage of life and perform who we are? And then Aquarius, the opposite sign there, is more about the collective. This is the tribe, the gathering, the network. It's the social connections that we have. It's our friendships and our, memberships of clubs and organizations. So it's kind of the opposite of this kind of very solitary it's not solitary in the same way as Capricorn is solitary, but Leo tends to operate on its own. It's more about the individual, whereas Aquarius is more about the group and the tribe. So it's kind of like there may be a conflict there of how am I meeting the collective, how am I expressing myself within the collective, those kinds of things. The lunation this afternoon, so this is taking place at 11 degrees of Aquarius. So if you know your chart, if you're familiar with what you have around that degree where Aquarius falls in your chart, what house in your chart does it occupy? And also the other fixed signs will get pulled into this, particularly Taurus, which I'll come on to in a moment, but also Scorpio. If you have anything from around 5 to 15, 16 degrees of these fixed signs, then that's what's really going to be stimulated with this particular lunation. So the moon itself is triggering or intensifying energy that we had yesterday on Sunday, which was the square aspect from Uranus to the sun. And this was a very provocative energy. You may have felt yourself being drawn into this for a few days, and it's certainly going to be active for a few days more. This real need to be done with something, just make a radical change, make a real shift out of something that's stale and old, or anything that really restricts you in some sense, that limits your personal freedom, that limits you being who you truly authentically are. And these are really powerfully similar kind of expressions that are going on here with Leo and Uranus. So this can, if we're not really truly aware of how that might be, if we haven't done quite a lot of work on our own level of consciousness at this point in time, then it could show up as just a general feeling of nervousness and irritability and, oh God, I need something to change, but I'm not quite sure what, or I'm really frustrated with something, or I'm feeling held back by something in my life, but I'm not quite sure what. So examine that a little bit more deeply. And certainly as the moon moves into this opposition today, then she herself creates another square down to Uranus. So this is really going to pull our emotions into it, and also our sense of security and safety in the world. This is very unstable energy. Uranus is called the Great Awakener. It's destabilizing energy. It's shocking. It's very fast. It's very it's like lightning. It's just like a lightning bolt that hits out of the blue. So really what we have here is these two square aspects joined by the opposition, which gives us an aspect known as T-square. It's very, very provocative, and it's kind of all about expect the unexpected. Yes, there could be very sudden events that turn up, and they may have done over the weekend. Sudden changes that you didn't foresee coming, things that happen out of the blue, that are kind of somewhat frustrating and limiting in nature, or really trying to give you a push to make a change. If something has just gone on too long, this is that sense of I really can't take this anymore. I just have to break away from this situation. It's that kind of energy. In addition to that, today we also have another opposition going on, this time between Mercury. Mercury has spent a really, really long time in the sign of Cancer due to his retrograde there. And at this time, he's now on Monday, he's going to be opposing Saturn. So this is quite challenging energy. But I think what it's trying to provoke us into doing is to take responsibility for what has shown up with the Mercury retrograde through Cancer. So if you've been watching me or other astrologers, if you've been working with that particular transit of late, trying to understand what the Mercury retrograde through Cancer has to offer you in terms of learning and understanding. Learning to express your emotions, learning to sort of understand the value of the home and the family, all of these things that we've been moving through. This opposition to Saturn today is really saying to you, okay, it's time to take this quite seriously. You know, Saturn isn't fun and games. It's kind of like, it's where we get really real with life. It's where we grow up. It's where we're a bit mature about things. And we have to show some respect for whatever Saturn is trying to do in our charts. If we don't respect Saturn, then Saturn can bring us some hard lessons. So this can give us a very serious tone to our thinking processes and our communication today. It can give us a sense of, you know, we might get messages, we might get communication that has a bit of a negative slant on it, or something that's quite restrictive, or something that stops us in some way, or really just doesn't make us feel very good. And it gives this more serious and somber tone to communications and thinking processes. So you might feel a little bit isolated today. You might feel lost in quite gloomy thoughts. Those kinds of things can show up. But essentially what Saturn is trying to do is trying to say, okay, this journey that we've been through here with Mercury in Cancer, all right, let's take this seriously now. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to get real about this and grow up and own it? Okay, so if you're channeling the Saturn energy in that way, if you're doing your diligence, if you're giving him the discipline that he wants from you, if you're doing the work, if you're putting the work in, you're channeling Saturn in a really good way. And if you're not, then it's going to kind of make you feel more gloomy and isolated and potentially a little bit depressing. We also have on Monday another square. So there's lots of difficult energy going on. This is one of the major squares of the Mars retrograde season that we're now in, essentially, although Mars isn't retrograde right now, it's in shadow. So this is the foretelling, essentially. So today Mars is just about applying to a square aspect with Jupiter, and this has been building throughout the weekend as well, giving an additional flavor to some of the shocks and surprises and instability that Uranus has been offering us as well. So the Mars-Jupiter square here, really this is about might. All right, Mars is the warrior, Mars is the fighter. It's kind of like saying might is right. All right, this kind of connection, or that can be how the behavior shows up. Might is right, or attacking things that we don't fully understand. You know, Jupiter in Capricorn isn't comfortable. It doesn't give us the best expression of Jupiter. Also, Jupiter is in retrograde. So again, it's going to give a different slant on what we might expect from Jupiter. So this is kind of like, you know, attacking things that we don't yet fully understand, or that we aren't able to completely comprehend. It's also being quite defensive about our beliefs, or feeling the need to defend our beliefs and opinions. So weaponized opinions, fast, fiery, aggressive ideas and opinions and beliefs kind of being rammed down people's throats, all of this thing. So yeah, social media, that's kind of a bit of a wash with all of this stuff, the fight. And this is, you know, something that we're going to see a lot more of, unfortunately, I feel, over the coming months with the Mars retrograde. But it's a foretelling. Mars is in shadow. So this is saying, okay, what's showing up right now is something that we're going to revisit when Mars goes retrograde. So, you know, pay attention, notice what's showing up now, because these are the areas that are going to show up again later on. And those areas could also be, this could be a foretelling of where there'll be an increased level of frustration and annoyance and irritation, potentially later down the line, particularly with regards to, depending on where Jupiter is falling in your chart, which part of your chart Capricorn rules. But this is a foretelling of frustrations related in general to justice, legal matters. So if you've got anything like that going through in your life, then again, pay attention to what's showing up now. Also, it's going to be anything to do with foreign matters, immigration, long distance travel, the kind of the international situation, whether that be international trade, foreign policy, transport and trade links, all of those kinds of things, anything, the globalized world, and all of the vulnerabilities and potential attacks and frustrations that can happen through the fact that we are so globalized now. Higher education matters, so a foretelling now of any kind of being held back, like I wanted to do some studies, I wanted to do this course, I wanted to go to university. It could be a foretelling of that, getting held back or frustrated or delayed in some way. And also publishing matters, like reaching a wider audience. And this actually, to me, is a bigger topic right now, as we see this kind of, you know, with Jupiter and Pluto being conjunct and both being retrograde in Capricorn, there's this deep distrust of the system. It's a deep distrust of our authority figures and people who are in a high position in our society. How far are we going to go with that mistrust, though, is kind of being inflamed somewhat potentially by Jupiter. And one of the things that I see coming under a lot of attack with this mistrust is what can be loosely termed as the media, or the mainstream media. Essentially all media at the moment is mainstream because it has such a global audience. This is one of the things when we look at Jupiter, it's the broader audience. So it rules publishing, it rules teachers, it rules preachers, it rules people that have a message to put out there and want to reach a wide audience. And this makes me consider, you know, the role of social media, the online world, very much this Uranus vibe, and this is the ruler of Aquarius, so the ruler of today's full moon. I think this is where a lot of this stuff is going to be playing out online and in social media, that connection, how we connect with all of these people. And I wonder if my emphasis that I've been talking about since the beginning with this, as we've been looking into and preparing for the Mars retrograde, has been around keeping the focus on the south, because that's what Mars and Aries are all about. Me, I, me, and my. Mars is going to be going through a retrograde. So this is saying, how do I need to review myself? How do I need to take a new look or a different look? How do I need to correct something? How do I need to refine something? You know, but it's always about me. It's not really, if we focus so much on other people, we're really going to be at a loss, because there's nothing we can do to control other people. We really have to put this focus back on ourselves. So putting this focus back on ourselves around the mistrust of the messages that are out there widely at the moment. Have we become journalists ourselves? Have we become the media? And I think we have. So where we are critical of what the information that we're receiving, where we are judging, Jupiter judging the accuracy of that, the validity of that, whether there's some darkness behind it because of the connection to Pluto, whether it's lies, whether it's manipulation, all of these things. How can we apply that to how we have become a journalist ourselves, how we are publishing our truth and our beliefs on a daily basis, on an hourly basis in some cases? Do we put ourselves and what the information we're putting out there, do we put that to the same tests? Are we as critical of it? Are we as judgmental of it? Are we as mistrusting of it? Do we give it the same, scrutiny and seriousness? This is Capricorn after all. Do we have a little bit of double standards going on? You know, are we sharing a meme and presenting it to the world as the truth just because it's something that we align with and we agree with? Without really going through any kind of discernment with that, without any kind of maturity around that. Does it have any validity as the truth? And if so, are you applying the same tests and measures, which is what Capricorn's all about, that you would apply to an article that you might judge critically? Just some thoughts there around, I think these are really important pieces to consider around what might play out with this full moon and some of the interactions that we might have. So it's always a case, it's going to be a case for the remainder of 2020 of bringing it back to the self. What needs to change within me? Okay, how do I use my power? What power do I have? Where do I direct my energy, my passion? That's what Mars is all about. That's my juice. That's my mojo. Am I spending all of my mojo like having this fight around my beliefs, or am I actually going to invest it in my future? Jupiter is my future. Jupiter is my opportunities. Jupiter is the big wide world that I want to expand into, and he's going to be making some important moves towards the end of this year. So, use your energy wisely. Mars, Jupiter, pick your battles, and always bring it back to the self and try and bring fairness and justice. Question the self. And yeah, the wise observer perspective always. So then that's peaking on the Tuesday, the Mars-Jupiter square there, whilst we still have the moon in the sign of Aquarius, so giving, continuing on from the full moon vibes and any kind of stimulation that they might provide in our lives. Wednesday then, so Wednesday the 5th of August, this is Mercury's day. And we have Mercury now completing the journey through Cancer and moving into the sign of Leo. This is great. This is going to give us a bit of a mental lift. You know, we've had this very long journey of Mercury through Cancer, really pulling our minds into our emotions, pulling our minds into the very sensitive areas of life. We've been communicating largely from our emotions and from our triggers and from our stories and from our past and from our need excuse me, and from our need to feel safe and secure in the world. But with Mercury ingressing into a fire sign, things get a lift, heat rises, so things are getting a lift. Our thoughts, our minds are being kind of pulled out of those deep soulful depths of Cancer and up into the heart space. Leo really is all about the heart, what's at the core of us, what's at the center. Leo is ruled by the sun, and we are in a solar system. The sun resides at the center of everything. So this is all about recentering. Leo season is about getting back into your center. And with Mercury there, that's really, really going to help us to do that. It's just kind of like coming in and bolstering the sun's efforts here. So our words, our thoughts will become a little bit warmer, a little bit more heartfelt, a little bit more playful, a little bit lighter than some of the depths that we've been in with Cancer. So this is a time really to get creative. Okay, Leo is all about the child that we all have within us. It's how we just lose ourselves in the moment, in the joy and the pleasure of precisely what we're doing right now. We just lose ourselves and we're completely in flow. It's beautiful flow. And when our mind is aligned with that, actually, we can produce some of our most creative work. Our best work can come when we're in that flow state. You know, that there are brain waves, you know, that can be measured scientifically, that can see when we're in this flow state. And certain pieces of music, classical music, and these kinds of things can help us get into that state. And we will all have something that's quite personal and unique to us that helps us get into that. If you know what that is, do more of it. And if you haven't discovered that yet, then this is a great time to just play. What were the things that you liked to do when you were a kid? Let's get back to doing some of those. Where did you just feel very true to yourself? Where did you feel in life that you could glow and shine and radiate? You know, this is what we need to be focusing our attention more on. So it's having fun. We can get greater refinement. And we can also have greater healing because, of course, Mercury, Hermes is a very healing energy. It's a very healing state for us to be in when we're in that flow state, when we're in the creative process. So refinement and healing can happen when we lose ourselves in the joy of what we are doing. So really trying to be present, very consciously present, and just letting everything else go and saying, I'm going to give my full attention to this specific thing that I'm involved in right now. We're more likely to be able to express ourselves from the heart as well. So this is, I think this is going to really, really help the situation that we find ourselves in this week. And it's putting more attention, more of our mental attention on the self and the effect that I have on other people. How does my light shine out into the world? How do I affect other people? So continuing on Wednesday, Mercury's day, and we also have at this point Venus. She also has had an extended stay where she has been, and she has been in a Mercury ruled sign. So a continuation of the Mercury vibes on Mercury's day, Wednesday. At this point, Venus will meet up with the north node of the moon, the lunar north node. That's 28 degrees of Gemini. And this, when we're looking at the nodes of the moon, quite a fated and karmic point in terms of our work with Venus. If you've been, like I was saying earlier with Mercury, the same with Venus, have you been engaged in the process of working with the Venus retrograde this year? How have you been involved in that? Again, an extended several months long journey going right back to April here with Venus. And she's now become, she started a whole new cycle. She's become the morning star. So she's really just starting out on a new journey. She's kind of, the old Venus stuff, our old values, our old love, our old relating, our old money issues, really have gone through this transformation now of, you know, the old moving away and coming into something new, realigning with things that we really do truly value. And I do feel that the lockdown situation has presented us with a fantastic opportunity to just give some more attention and explore a greater variety of things with Gemini that ordinarily life wouldn't give us the chance to do. And we found so much pleasure, so much joy, so much beauty, so much love in those things, whether it's being able to spend more time with our families or spend more time in nature. I see so many people, it's a perfect Gemini vibe is the local neighborhood. And so many people have said, oh, I found this great walk in my neighborhood that I never knew was there, or I've explored this place that I'd never even been to, even though it was just a couple of miles down the road, but I'd never had the chance to do that. All of these things that have come into our life, or the joy of, you know, cooking and doing things, reading, all of these new skills that we've been able to develop, or things that we've been able to come back to, perhaps that we'd started at some point and then kind of put on the back burner, finishing off projects, things like that. We've gained so much, lots of people have gained so much. And it's tuned us back into what are the things in life that are truly important and truly valuable to us. So with Venus meeting up with the North Node now, just as she's about to move out of Gemini, it's giving this really nice punctuation mark, essentially, in that transit. As she's saying, yeah, let's move into the future now with this stuff. Let me get rid of that square. This is, yeah, I now need to take all of this learning, this love learning, these lessons in love that I've had, and actually move into the future now with them. That could feel just a little bit challenged, you know, because she's going to be opposing the South Node. And the South Node is saying, you know, a release, it's a letting something go. So there is you know, there is a requirement to do that. We have to let something go if we're going to be able to move into something new. We have to make the space. So there is potentially, you know, a bit of a challenge around doing that. But I think that the amount of Mercury energy here, and particularly with Mercury in Leo, the core, the heart of the self, I think it's going to really be about just being a little bit more aligned with the self in this respect, moving forward in a way that you now understand is better for you as an individual, and is going to help you to be the best version of yourself, to shine your light the brightest. So some thoughts on that. So there will be a push to release the old as she moves into her new cycle as the morning star and meets the North Node. And it's essentially saying it's time now. Now is the time. This really does work beautifully with Mercury moving into Leo, and also off the backdrop of the Uranus Sun square, provoking this need to really shed the old ways that we've you know, limited ourselves, the ruts that we've got stuck into that haven't allowed us to be authentic. and really be true to ourselves. So all of these energies combine really, really well. During this time, the moon, during everything that I've just been talking about there on Wednesday, the moon will be in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So again, it's facilitating release. It's facilitating things coming to an end. And also because she's now moved past the full part of the cycle, again, she's in the waning phase of her cycle. And therefore, again, it's about a reduction. The moon is now shrinking in size, and she can help to take things away if that's what you want from her for the 14 days following the full moon. Okay, so it's really facilitating any kind of release. The moon in Pisces, the sign of Pisces is essentially, it's the two fishes. It's a dual sign. So these two fishes are moving in opposite directions, okay? And this is kind of like the influence of water. Water can act as two things. It can act as something, we're familiar with Pisces being what unifies us all. The common bond of humanity is Pisces, essentially, that we are all fundamentally connected spiritually. And if you think of, you know, how water merges and blends and combines and helps things to connect and to come together, but it can also separate things as well. I mean, just think of an ocean, it separates two bodies of land. So there's this dual aspect to it, and that is going to reflect some of the duality of Gemini, also a twin sign, and the duality of this pivot point of you know, the pull of the old and the comfort zone, and staying with what I know, staying with what makes me feel safe and comfortable, and this this knowing, this fated feeling that I just have to. It's my destiny now to cut ties and move forward, and that does create, you know, it's an opposition. The nodes are always in opposition to each other. So with Venus coming into this point, you know, there is these two sides, and that's going to be reflected by the moon in that dual sign. And that's something to be rectified within, essentially, on a spiritual level, on a higher level, and connect with source in whatever form that you do. That's going to help you with this process. Ask for guidance from God, from creator energy, whatever that is to you, from spirit. You know, ask for their support in moving you in the right direction. And ask for help from other people as well. You know, reach out to other people, the people that you love in your life, the people that you know care about you, the people that you know actually recognize the higher self within you. And can be with you in that space, and aren't going to judge. You know, we all have these contradictory, conflicting aspects of ourselves, and it's really, really hard. It's hard work being a human being, to be honest. So let's try and help each other as much as we can. So moving into Thursday then, Thursday is Jupiter's day. And we have, as the moon moves through Pisces, which is Jupiter's own sign, we have a connection here with Jupiter again. It's the sextile aspect, again, with Neptune, but it's going to be exacerbated, increased, or brought more into awareness by the moon's movement through Pisces. So the combinations of Neptune and Jupiter give us dreamy, romantic, idealistic kinds of vibrations. It's kind of like, oh, the optimism of Jupiter, and, you know, the romance and the glamour of Neptune, how Neptune kind of presents everything to us as of the Hollywood film, you know, the happy ending story and all of this kind of thing, the romance novel. That's Neptune. But let's just consider for a second here, both of these planets are in retrograde. So, you know, that's going to give a slightly different dimension to it. They're also being activated by a waning moon. So this offers us a challenge, I think, where we may have had some disappointments and disillusionments, where we perhaps might have been a little bit too carried away on the tide of optimism and idealism, where we might have got a bit, you know, carried away on the tide, you know, that truly is Jupiter Neptune, carried away on the tide of romance, carried away on the tide of, you know, everything is wonderful, everything's going to turn out great, you know, the naivety essentially of Neptune. We can be disillusioned, we can be very much discouraged, disheartened, all of these kinds of things. We can lose hope, you know. So with these guys in retrograde right now, these things may have been cropping up, and certainly in this past week we've had a square aspect from Venus to Neptune, which again can speak to yeah, disillusionments and disappointments with love and with money and with purchases that we may have made, beauty treatments we may have had, relationships, you know, lots of disappointments and disillusionments out there in relation to this. So this sextile aspect now offers us the opportunity to gain something from that. Now, with a waxing moon going through this last sign, it's really saying to us, you know, let's take the higher view of this situation and turn it into something better. Let's turn it into a lesson. Let's turn it into some wisdom. You know, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's the wise old sage, essentially, very similar to Jupiter. That's the Jupiter essence that comes through Pisces. And we only get to that place in life through experience. Like, we don't learn as human beings, generally speaking, we don't learn big lessons through everything going right and falling into place and turning out just as we thought. Like, those aren't the lessons. The lessons are when we fall off the bike, you know, and we scrape our knee, but we know we have to get back on and ride again. But this time when we get back on and ride again, then we know not to take the corner quite that sharply, or, you know, we know we've learned something from it. And it's the pain, you know, the disappointment of falling off the bike teaches us not to do that thing again. But we have to engage with that process. We have to pay attention to that lesson. We have to just validate the lesson just a little bit, you know, mentally, to just, so we don't just keep repeating the same thing. And people do get caught in these habits and these patterns, and that's very much what the moon is all about, you know, habits, things that just occur over and over again, these cycles. So using the moon waning through the last sign here, really just to say, okay, these disappointments and disillusions where I was perhaps a little bit naive, where I was a bit romantic, overly idealistic, overly, you know, ambitious. Sometimes with Jupiter, we can overreach or over-expect. Yeah, how can we turn that into a lesson? Where's the learning so that we don't have to go through that lesson again? Because that's just annoying. Okay, so we then have, this is going to continue essentially as the moon moves into the end stages of Pisces. She will then square Venus. Okay, so just really again provoking that connection with Venus and the lessons that we've been learning with her. Venus then is now at 29, this is Thursday still, Thursday the 6th. Venus is now at 29 degrees of Gemini, the anaretic degree of this sign, of all signs. So very, very powerful and important degree of the transit of a planet through a sign. So very prominent. Her influence is going to be that much more strong on this day. And with this square to the moon, again, it's going to be provoking this idea of, you know, these disappointments and disillusionments and love, and where we can turn that into a lesson. I mean, it's so perfect. The divine orchestration of everything is so perfect. You know, this is love lessons, Venus in Gemini. What have I learned about love? What have I learned about value? Also, what have I learned? You know, Venus rules love, pleasure, and money. And I think one of the best words that can be used with Venus is enrichment. Because, you know, that really kind of pulls together the idea of what we value, which is a Venus concept. You know, what truly, truly enriches my life and what really doesn't. And through these difficult lessons and these disappointments and disillusionments, it puts me in a position where moving forward with the North Node, I'm better able to recognize and understand, and therefore be able to align with what I now know is more enriching to me. Or at the very least, move away from what doesn't enrich me. I suppose that's the first step of moving towards what does enrich you, is moving away from what doesn't, essentially. So that's going to really carry on then into Friday, which is Venus's day. Venus is the ruler of Friday. The moon will then move out of Pisces and into Aries, passing by Chiron all the way. So, you know, tapping us into the wounding aspect. But what's wonderful is that on Friday, Venus moves into Cancer, a whole new sign for Venus for the first time in many months. So we're going to start aligning more with a Venus in Cancer vibe as the moon moves over Chiron. What's that? Well, this is nurturing, this is caring. So we're going to be feeling more caring, more nurturing. We're going to want to give love more to other people. We're going to want to take care of other people. But also I would suggest with the moon in Aries, this is going to be a time to nurture and mother our own hearts and our own values, just that little bit, off the back of all of this powerful energy around these love lessons, and certainly with the moon going over Chiron there. Let's just take some time to nurture and mother our own hearts and the wounds that they have accumulated potentially, any sadness or loss or disappointment that might be there. This is going to basically increase the loving and caring vibes out there, which is a wonderful thing. We all need that. There's also going to be an increase in the appreciation and pleasure that we get from the home and from our family. You know, we might feel drawn to spend more time with family, and that doesn't necessarily mean to be your blood family, whoever it feels like family to you. We want to spend more time with them, we want to care for them, we want to cook for them, we want to hang out with them, just having pleasure, watching a film. We may also want to beautify our home in some way, give it a good redecorate, or buy something new, or spend a little bit of money on the home or the family. All of these things really, because we're really feeling that need to care, that real generous vibration that comes from the heart. You know, this is moon energy. Cancer is moon combined with Venus. So it's very caring and very, very loving. So we can enjoy a few weeks of that kind of vibe. Learn to appreciate and value our own emotional nature and our sensitivities, and also where we offer care to other people. You know, learning to appreciate ourselves, learning to recognize the difference that you make in all of the different ways that you mother. Now, I'm not a mother, I don't have children, I don't have human children, but I mother in lots of ways. I nurture plants, I cook for other people. There's lots and lots of different ways. You know, when we pop round to a friend's house when they're poorly with a bunch of flowers, there's so many different ways that we mother and nurture and parent, you know, same for guys as well, you know, we all have all of these energies within us. And so it's just coming to appreciate that, and understanding that we, you know, love doesn't really have a limit. It needs to be put to use. It's not something that we can just kind of like stash away in the bank. It's not like this limited thing, or I've only got so much love to give, so I've got to meter it out really stingily. It's a constant flow. And the more you allow it to move through you and into other people, the more, the bigger that channel gets, like the more that can come into you and through you. And Cancer really allows this to happen so beautifully, because Cancer just wants to care naturally. So this is a really great time to expand that channel of love and care. And you will feel more coming into you the more you give out. This is the thing, and then that's when we realize we're constantly tapped into this. But it's water, you know, and water gets stagnant if it's not moving, if it's not flowing. It goes a bit sort of smelly, and there's all mosquitoes and leeches, and there's like a swamp. We don't want our emotional world to become a swamp, right? It needs to flow. And so let's you know, let's move this Venus energy through us so that we can have more and more. Let's desire, let's truly look for and desire the opportunity to offer love and care to other people, just in some way. And it's when we do that, and when we give love, that's when we realize how much love we have in us, because we couldn't give it if we didn't have it, right? And so that's when we realize we've been given that love. I can't have love in me unless it's come to me. If I have it to give to someone, then I've been given it. And it's in those moments of offering love and giving love and care that you realize how much you've been given yourself. It's a really beautiful thing. As we move into the weekend, then let's just clear these aspects off. As we move into Saturday and Sunday, we do have an Aries moon. So yeah, a little bit more feisty, a little bit more impulsive with some of our emotions potentially. But the great thing about having the sun in a fellow fire sign, in this case Leo, is that it's going to trine the moon. These fellow Leo, Sag and Aries, they're all the fire signs and so forth. So therefore they trine each other. So there's a harmonious and recognizable energy flow between them. So although we've got the moon in Aries, which can be a bit impulsive and rash, it's going to be stabilized somewhat by the sun in Leo. When the moon and the sun trine each other, there's generally a greater sense of harmony and cohesion between the kind of the rational and irrational sides of ourselves, or the masculine and feminine, or yin and yang, however you want to look at it. But that's a harmonious energy flow. So it's actually likely that we'll feel really good this coming weekend. Fire energy is warm, it's bright, it's active. We've got Mercury there wanting to get out and about and enjoy the sunshine. So it's got a lot going for it in that sense. Okay, but let's try not to get complacent with that. Let's try not to get too comfortable and too full of ourselves, because that Jupiter thing is still going on there with Mars. But yeah, it's with the Moon-Mars combination, it could flare up that square aspect to Jupiter again. All right, so that's the two sides of it. Make sure you're channeling the one that you want the best. Focusing on the self, I can guarantee you, if you just pull your energy into working on you, refining you, putting your efforts and energies into you, then I think that's where you'll feel great. But if you're still hanging out in this, I need to have an argument and a battle about everything, then it's just going to be a waste. And it's going to make you feel angry and tense, and it's not essentially going to be very good for you. So that's kind of the energy over the weekends, dominated by, you know, these two fire signs being connected quite harmoniously. Next week, then, we are moving into, very, very powerful week again. I feel like I said that almost every week of 2020, but yeah, next week we go in, we turn a page on the Mars retrograde story again. And this is going to keep happening. You know, it's all going to be about this Mars retrograde essentially between now and the end of the year. So we need to make sure that we do our work each step of the way, particularly in this pre-shadow phase, because that's what's going to cut off anything too horrible showing up with the retrograde. You know, if we're diffusing a little bit of the situation now, then less irritation and frustration will show up later on. So do put a little bit of effort in, use some of your energy and your mojo and your juice sensibly and wisely at this time, and I'm sure you will save yourself a lot of trouble later down the line. So next Monday, I shall be back as always to talk to you all about the next bit that we're moving into with that Mars retrograde. If you haven't seen it already, do check out my Mars retrograde in Aries special video on my YouTube channel. That's going to give you all the really crucial dates on that transit. Have a beautiful week. There's a lot of change, loads of change. Mercury changing sign, Venus changing sign, ton of Uranus energy, the nodes being involved. This really is a powerful week for you to decide, make that decision. There's two paths, Gemini and Pisces, twin signs, two paths you can go. I think that's a Led Zeppelin lyric. And yeah, you're at that choice point now. So choose wisely. Have a beautiful week. Thanks for watching. As always, please give me a like, a love, share, comment. Let me know how you're getting on, because that really does mean an awful lot to me. And it helps me to get my message and the message of astrology out to other people so that they can benefit from this. And as always, we know that the more the individual benefits, then the more the collective does too. Thanks a lot and take care. Much love. Bye-bye.